going on, guys? XSR Detroit here with another video for you. Today we're going to be flushing the brake system on my XSR900. It's a fairly simple job, pretty easy to do. Yamaha recommends you do it every 2 years, so it's definitely time to get some fresh .4 into my bike. So let's grab some tools and get to work. Now you're going to need a couple things before we flush the brake system. Let's start out with some replacement .4 brake fluid, and we're also going to need a bleed bottle. As far as the brake fluid went, I just went with Yamaha because I was at the bike shop anyway, but any .4 should do the job. Before I take the cap off of the front master cylinder, I'm going to put some shop rags around it. .4 can damage paint, so you don't want it really getting on your bike, so I would recommend throwing some towels down or something to just protect the area around it, protect your bike, just in case you spill any brake fluid or something gets on your bike. So first step is we're going to use a Phillips head screwdriver to remove the top cap of the master cylinder. And I got a shop rag here to grab that. Take the top off that. Take that with it. Down at the front wheel on both calipers is this bleed nipple. What we're going to do is we're going to pop this cover off so we can access it. At this point you're going to need an 8mm wrench and your bleed bottle. We are ready to hook up the bleed bottle. Pop that on. Nice. And mine's got a magnet, so I'm just going to stick it there. Now we're ready to pump up our brakes. At this point, what we're going to do is gently pump and hold the brakes. Once we're holding that pressure, we're going to crack the bleed nipple loose with the wrench, and then once we lose all that pressure, we're going to close that bleed nipple again and repeat the process until the master cylinder is just about empty. Make sure you're keeping an eye on where your brake fluid is at in the master cylinder. We're not trying to get air into the system, we're just trying to flush out all this old fluid. Once the master cylinder is just about empty, we're going to fill and we'll probably repeat the process at least 2 or 3 times. At this point, my master cylinder is nearly empty, so I'm going to fill it back up and repeat the process. Fill it up to about that amount. We're going to refill the master cylinder one more time on the right front caliper. Filling up the master cylinder again, and we're going to move to the left caliper. The left caliper is pretty much the same as the right. You're going to have this bleed nipple, pop the cover off, hook your bottle up. It's 8mm, same as the right, and proceed with the bleeding of the brakes. First fill up for the left side of the caliper. We're ready for the second fill on the left caliper. At this point, we're ready to disconnect the bleed bottle. Something to look for is any air you could see in the line. You shouldn't have any air the way with a flush. If we were bleeding brakes, it would be a different story, but no matter what, you shouldn't see any air. The entire brake system should be completely flush with fluid, no air in the lines whatsoever. Once you take off the bleed bottle, make sure that your bleed nipple is on snugged up, it's not leaking or anything, and replace the cap. And make sure you do this on both sides. Now we're ready to top off our master cylinder and put our cap back on. Make sure when you put this on, it's tight, but not, excessively tight. Just snug it on there nicely and you should be good to go. I'm gonna give the brake lever a couple squeezes. Feels really nice, feels really firm. Much better than it was before. So now we're ready to move on to the rear caliper. Taking a look at the rear master cylinder, the first thing we're gonna do is remove this nut here so we can take this collar off and pop the top off on that reservoir. Oh yeah, and this is 8mm. So on the rear caliper, we have another bleed nipple. Pop the top off of that, and instead of being 8mm, this one is actually 10mm. So let's attach our bleed bottle. So what we're doing back here is the same concept as the front brakes. We're going to pump, hold, and then crack the bleed nipple and just continue that until the master cylinder is at about the lower mark that you can see on there, and then we'll fill it up, and we'll probably do this 2 or 3 times. Now you can see the brake fluid level is just above lower. I'm not going to go any lower than that. I'm going to fill up again because I don't want to get any air into the system. Even if you do get some air into the system, just keep bleeding until you get all of it out. It's not a huge deal. Just make sure you get that air out of the lines. So at this point, we're ready to fill up again. Ready for our second fill up. I'm gonna do one last fill up and bleed, and then we'll top it off and call it a day on the rear brakes. At this point, we are ready for the final fill up for the rear master cylinder reservoir. And we're gonna take it right up to the upper level right there. Perfect. Put this portion of the top on. Then we're going to replace the reservoir cap. Put our collar back on. Poke that through. Put on. Give all this a wipe down. And that is that. Now, same as the front calipers, make sure your bleed nipple is on snug, not too tight, just snug. Wipe that down, get any brake fluid on there. Pop the cap back on, and you are good to go. Give that rear brake a couple squeeze. Feels nice, feels firm, feels better than how it was. So that about does it for my video on flushing the brake system on your XSR900 or MT09. Super easy to do, super cheap to do. Don't neglect your brake fluid. It doesn't take long. It can get a little tedious with the front brakes, but it really isn't a big deal. And if you haven't done it, you really should. Like I said earlier in the video, every 2 years or so. I mean, some people even do it yearly. It's really, once you do it the first time, it's not a big deal. So I encourage you to get that old brake fluid out, flush in some new stuff, and you will definitely notice a difference when you're grabbing the brake lever. But as always, thank you very much for checking out the video. If you like my content, please subscribe. If you have any questions, just put them down in the comment section. And if you like the video, consider giving it a like. Alright guys, ride fast, ride naked, wear your helmet. I'll see you in the next one.